Welcome to Keep Six Instagram Live, Connect the Six. It is August, and all August we have been talking about how to speak with kids about the hard stuff. Today's going to be a great conversation. It's going to be a great show, a great episode. Today we have Roxanne Francis, who is a clinical social worker, registered social worker, and psychotherapist. And she works a lot with children, with families, with parents. So she's going to be joining us today speaking about the hard stuff. So I'm so looking forward. Hey everybody, welcome to Keep Six Instagram platform. Hello, come on in everybody. I am your host, Natacha Pennycooke. I am a registered psychotherapist and going to be a great conversation today. We're speaking with Roxanne Francis. She is a clinical social worker who works a lot with children, with youth, with families. So it's going to be a great conversation. And again, we are discussing, talking to children and youth about the hard stuff, right? All the hard stuff as us parents that we're navigating the return to work scene. So it is going to be a really great conversation. And I think Roxanne is just about joining. I'm just going to put my phone on silent. Hey, everybody. So I'm just waiting to Roxanne. Roxanne definitely requests to join. As I set things up here, I'm going to have Rachel on the back end. Hey, Rachel, I see you. So Rachel, my wonderful co-host, is going to be here as well. She is going to be fielding the questions, right? So we're here with Roxanne until about 7:40. So please get your questions in. Roxanne in now. Hopefully I can get her on. Can everyone hear me? Let me know if everyone can hear me, if I'm doing well. Rachel, let me know. Hey, Roxanne.
Hey, Natasha.
Hey, I'm just going to raise up the volume. You guys, let me know if you can hear me. All right, how's that? Roxanne, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you very well.
Okay, great. Roxanne, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for telling me, yes, you can hear me. Roxanne, thank you so much for joining us today here on Keep Six. Of course, you are more than welcome. So I was just letting our audience know a little bit about you, a little bit about Keep Six for those who are new of joining. This is our August back to school special, and we are discussing, talking to children about the hard stuff. So Roxanne, I know that I'm just pulling up my stuff now. So I know that you're a clinical social worker, you're a registered social worker, you do psychotherapy, you work with children, you work with youth, you work with families. You do a lot of stuff. And I know that you've been, helping people access different tools to change their life over the last 10 years. And you're the
Yes.
owner and operator of Francis Psychotherapy and Consulting Services. At the moment, you're offering in-person, you're offering video, counseling, psychotherapy, again, children, individuals, couples, and you also work with management with the tools to help them recognize the support to be able to support mental health needs of their
Yes.
colleagues, right? And you said that you know firsthand how employees leave organizations due to lack of understanding, lack of support of their mental health needs.
Yep.
Roxanne, I know you enjoy working with communities, community groups to really turn things around. You enjoy giving keynote addresses, workshops in the community, and you're particularly passionate about mental health awareness, a woman's sense of self and self-worth, and the psychological impact on immigration and systemic oppression. It's amazing that you're doing all this stuff, which definitely speaks to me, because as our followers here know, all of that falls in line. So I'm very excited to have this conversation with you today. So yeah, Roxanne, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, who you are, your
Yeah.
practice.
So, I'm Roxanne. I am a registered social worker. I do clinical social work. I'm not a registered psychotherapist, although I often use the term psychotherapist, but we do similar work. Like you said, you hit the nail on the head. I do all of those things. I do community work. I give keynote. I talk to children. I mentor in the community. I do couples work and family work and all that stuff. And I have two little boys that keep me on my toes. They are 5 and 8. And I have a husband that has been partnering with me for quite a few years now. And we are just trying to figure this life out. I was actually speaking to someone last night who's also in this work, and she said she heard someone say something that really resonated with me. She said, um, I'm not waiting for my life to be perfect before I start doing this work, which just speaks to the idea that
Mm.
although we're doing this work, none of us have it down to a perfect science. We're all just living life as best as we can.
Definitely, that resonates because it's true. We're all living life and trying to figure out and trying to navigate our own spaces and our collective spaces all
Yeah.
together, right? I mean, our viewers know I've been very, very open and transparent on the show. I've cried, especially, you speak about your sons, and I also have a 5-year-old as well. So we're in that same camp there. It's hard, right? Life is hard. Life is difficult. So being able to have some tools, especially as parents,
Mhm.
especially as Black women parents, and especially parents of young children, being able to have some tools to navigate the world that we're trying to figure out is so, so important. It's so
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
So, Roxanne, tell us, I know that you work a lot with children and youth. Tell us how COVID has impacted the children and youth that you work with, also your own children, right? Tell us how it's impacted children and youth educationally, socially, mentally.
So, for different children have different, it impacts them differently. Some kids are really, it doesn't phase them at all. School,
Mm,
at home, fine, just tell me what to do, I'll do it. And I find that specifically with the teens who don't have any sort of pre-existing mental health issues, where those socioeconomic things at home are really settled. They get the homework from school, they go to their room, they do the homework, and that's it. Parents don't have to worry about them. Sometimes with other children, there are issues like um, uh, anxiety comes up quite a bit for a lot of the kids. They have trouble with regulating. Um, they are falling apart very easily, especially children who are. Can you see me okay? Just
yeah,
having,
I can see you. Yeah, I can see you.
um, children who have trouble with uh, social engagement. There are children who are very, very social creatures and who really need face to face with the other kids. They
Yeah.
struggle. Um,
Mhm.
some children, one of the things that I find I often talk to parents about is that when small children have an issue with their emotions, they don't know how to come to you and say, Mommy, I feel anxious. Or
Right, right.
Mommy, I am really, um, you know, I'm feeling really depressed today. They don't know how to
Mhm.
do that. And so um, it comes out in their behavior, right? It
Right.
comes out in their um, acting out, in, you know, responding to parents in a difficult way, throwing tantrums, being
Mhm.
physical with their siblings. Parents don't know who is this child? Where did this child come from? And quite often, kids who are struggling with even with mental health challenges, parents don't realize until it starts to become a big behavioral issue. Parents often will come to me and they'll say, they won't say my kid is depressed or anxious. They'll say, they're really angry and we don't know what's happening. And
Right.
so that I have found that that has been an issue for a lot of the kids. In terms of educational impact,
Right.
the best learning for a child is face to face. That's
Mhm.
where they ask the questions. That's where they make the observations. That's where, sometimes it's a teacher observation that will trigger the question around, does my child have a mental health issue? Does my child have ADHD?
Mhm.
the teachers recognizing it, right? The best learning, it's in the classroom where they can touch the object, where they can feel it, where they can go for a walk in the yard, where they can learn about, mailing and going to the mailbox and dropping something in. Children learn, they can often be very tactile learners. And so when that's taken away, I would say maybe, I don't have stats behind it, but I would say about 40% of the learning, the meat of the learning, it gets diluted, right? Socially, they miss their friends. I can even speak to in my home. My 5-year-old, he's very easygoing, and he's like, whatever, he'll just follow along with whatever we're doing. My 8-year-old, on the other hand, is a very, very social boy, and he has multiple issues throughout these few months, just crying, and why can't I go back to school? He said to me, Mommy, I can't survive without my friends.
Oh gosh.
I know. Since the communities have been in stage 3, he's been very happy. He's going on bike rides with some of his friends, social distance bike rides, that kind of thing. And he has actually been wondering, when are we going back to school? That's his number one question these days.
Question.
Right? Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So it impacts them all the way around. Totally.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit, because I'm imagining that other parents are also struggling with that, where the children are asking, when am I going back? When am I going back? When am I going back? How have you navigated that question?
So, at first we thought, well, we could send him back. And because personally in our home, we're still toggling. Are they going back? And so he would often say, I can't wait to go back to school and see all my friends. Maybe we can have a party because everyone missed each other. And so we had to sit down last week and say, Mom and Dad are still not 100% sure if you're going back to school. And cue the waterworks immediately. He was very, and he could not understand. And it was very cruel. And he said, I've waited so patiently, and it's not fair. And hey, it's not fair. And so I had to sit him down, and I had to say to him, do you trust us to make the right decision for our family?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And, I acknowledged his feelings for sure. I said to him, let's count how many months. We counted since March break. And he said, Mom, it's almost been 6 months, right? Yes. And I can't believe I've waited almost 6 months and I might not be able to go back. It's not fair. And I validated that. You're right. And it's sad, and I completely get it. I explained to him that we miss our friends too. We would have friends come over in our home, break bread with them, and just hang out. And he's noticed that we haven't done that, and I explained that to him. And I asked him if he understood why, and he said yes. No one wants to get sick. And I said, okay, he understands that the coronavirus it hasn't vanished, right? And so we talked about, what would it be like if you go to school and someone walks in with that virus? What would happen, right? And I explained to him, I'm not trying to scare you, but we are trying to be safe. And just as you trust us to put you in the right clothing when it's wintertime and summertime, just the way you trust us to give you healthy food to eat, just the way you trust us to create limits so that you don't get to stay up until midnight, even though you want to. We want you to trust us to make the right decision here. And then I did say to him that although we're trying to make the right decision, no one really knows what is the right thing to do. We're just trying to make an informed decision with the information that we have. And so he sat there and he looked at me and he said, you know what? Yeah, you're right. It didn't make him happy, but he was able to understand it a little bit better. And, I can't say whether or not I did the best thing, right? Because nobody has that parenting handbook, right? But I think I was able to practice what I tell a lot of the parents that I work with. Sit down and talk to your kids. Make them a part of the conversation. Explain to them. If you are undecided, don't tell them that we're confused and we don't know what to do. Explain to them that you're undecided and explain to them why. Because they're looking to us for limits and boundaries, and they're looking to us for direction. And so we have, put them at ease somehow.
Yeah, no, I love that. You gave some very, very actionable tools there that parents who are not, right, in the mental health profession like we both are, but still being able to use those tools tangibly, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
sitting them down, validating. So validating very much means, right, letting them know, yes, it is sad. I'm sad too that I don't get to see my friends. I'm sad too that I don't get to go to work in some cases, right?
Right.
To
Right.
see my coworkers, my
Right.
work friends, as my little one calls them, his school friends and my work friends, right? So yeah, no, that's amazing. I love that you gave those tools. How has the idea of potentially going back to school increase some mental wellness issues? Right, like there's the idea like going to school but being distanced from your friends, wearing a mask, seeing your teachers wearing a mask. Have you
And
noticed with some of
I
your clients or
I
parents?
got an uptick in my clients, especially the ones who have anxiety issues, right?
Yeah.
I had one client who her mother took her to a medical appointment, and throughout COVID, they've all been at home, not really going anywhere, just laying low, maybe going for walks and bike rides and stuff. And the mother was the one going into stores, getting groceries, that kind of thing. And they had a medical appointment, and she explained to her son that you were going to be wearing a mask and that people inside are going to be wearing a mask, but he wasn't quite sure what to expect. And so he
Mm-hmm.
went in, and everyone in the room was wearing a mask, and all the medical professions were wearing face shields, and he had a full blown
Yes. Oh gosh.
because he just was not ready for it.
Yeah. Explain what a panic attack for those who may not
Yeah.
know.
So he that would mean a rush of anxiety, a rush of emotion. For a lot of people, it's very physical. It's rapidly increased heart rate in a way that probably is not typical. A lot of adults, when they have panic attacks, feel like they're having heart attacks and they actually go to the emergency room.
Yeah.
It's a rush of blood to your brain, it's a rush of adrenaline. A lot of people talk about losing sensation in their extremities or tingling fingers or legs, feeling like you can't breathe, you can't catch a breath, and not being able to calm down. And so the mom had to actually pick him up, take him outside, put him in the car, and, she had to model deep breathing until he was able to regulate. And then they talked about what he saw inside, and he couldn't compute like what's
Yeah.
happening.
He couldn't understand and put it together, right? I think one of the biggest things that also come up with a panic attack is that it's the fear. It's that
Yeah,
fear of the unknown and the uncertainty. So you could imagine for this little boy walking in and seeing everyone in face coverings after he's been inside all
right,
this time, and he's just like, what is going on? So he probably had this big rush of fear, as you speak
right,
about anxiety, that fear that comes up, and he's like, I got to get out of here. It's not safe.
right, exactly,
Right?
exactly.
Yeah. Oh
um,
gosh.
I've also seen there's another little girl that she has sort of mild anxiety, and I was seeing her on and off because they were managing it. I gave them the tools and they were managing it. And more recently, mom called and said her anxiety is ticking up and it's getting a little bit. I can't control it anymore. You need to speak with her. I spoke with her and she couldn't figure out what was happening. She didn't
Yeah.
know where it was coming from. The anxious behaviors were just, at a higher rate. And so we talked about whether or not there were any changes in her life, and she said no. And then I realized that it was the week after the announcement that school was going to reopen full time.
Mm,
And
mm-hmm.
so I said to her, "Do you guys watch the news in your home?" And she said, "Yeah, sometimes." And I said, "Have you guys spoken about going back to school?" And she said, "Well, we haven't really talked about it, but I know that we're all going back to school and that we're all going to be wearing masks." And as she was talking, I could tell that her breathing had started to become more
Yeah.
shallow. And
Yeah.
so I asked her what she thought about that. And she said, "I cannot wear a mask for 6 hours a day. I cannot even
Mm,
wear it for half an hour in the grocery store with my mom. It itches.
mm,
I feel like I can't breathe. I want to rip it off." And the fact
mm,
that everyone in my class, I won't be able to see my friends' faces. I won't be able to see my teacher's face. My teacher might be new to me. All of those things and all of these thoughts, children are resilient. We give them that for sure. But
mhm.
they need someone to sit them down and prepare them for this new
Right.
reality.
Right. Yes. Yes. One of the things that I like for my little one's school, they sent a video that they posted on their YouTube page of all the staff, whether it's
Hmm.
teaching staff or office staff or cafeteria staff. They literally sent a video of every single staff without a mask and
Mm,
then with a mask so that the children can start to see what they look like without and with. Right.
that's a
And it's a
great.
video, so like parents can go back to say, okay, this is Natasha without a mask, and this is Natasha with a mask, right? And I think that's really, really good. So
Idea.
children can start getting that idea, okay, this is still my teacher, this is what they look like with the mask. So they start
Mm,
to, right, the anxiety start to lessen. Um,
yes.
as we're talking about the going back to school pieces, there's been so much that have been going on, right? In the last, what is it, 6, 7 months? Basically, the
Yes.
whole 2020,
Oh,
the whole 2020. How have parents have been coming to you about how to have the talk with their children about race, about racism, about Black Lives Matter, right? It's such a big piece
it
of what's
is.
been going on in 2020. So how are you navigating that with your clients?
So, I've had, like you said, I've had parents come to me asking me about the talk. While it is important to have an initial conversation with your children, I tell parents all the time, if you're having one talk, that's a problem. It's not just the talk, it's over. It needs to be a continued conversation. It doesn't have to be every 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be every single day. That door always has to be open. We need to talk about the children's experiences. We need to talk about, they don't necessarily have to see all the videos that are going around on TV and on the news, but they're hearing
Yeah.
about it, right?
Yes.
And they
Yeah.
need to, it's like talking to your children about sex. You don't want them to hear about it first from their girlfriends at school or their boyfriends at school, right? They need to hear about it initially from you, and the door around that talk always needs to be open. You need to talk to them
Mhm.
about their value, about
Yes.
how they are worth just as much as everybody else. You know,
Mhm.
I've had parents say to me, "Well, my children don't notice color. They just because they don't talk about it doesn't mean that they don't notice. If your three
Yes.
year old can tell that the sky is blue and the grass is green, they can tell that I have black skin and somebody else has white skin, right? And
Yes.
just because
Thank you. Thank you.
you
Yes.
talk about it, what it does, what does happen is that if we don't talk about it, it says to them, it is something we don't talk about. And it
Mhm.
introduces discomfort around you, right?
Mhm.
It becomes a thing that it becomes the elephant in the room. It becomes a thing that we all
Mhm.
don't talk about. And that's a part of the
Mhm.
problem. So we all need to
Yeah.
start talking about, recognizing that people have different skin tone. And it doesn't have to be a bad thing. We can talk about just race, but about where people are from, about
Mhm.
what they eat, where they're from. Make it,
Mhm.
I guess, pre-COVID and post-COVID, when things like festivals, you remember those days when they used to have festivals?
What?
um,
Those days, my son regularly says, "Mama, can we go get some festivals? We have a sunrise literally 5 minutes from here." So he's like, I'm going to Sunners, as he calls it, to go get me some festivals." I'm like, okay.
but when they have like street festivals, or they have Taste on the Danforth, or they have Caravana, they have the Filipino festival, but they have all of these different cultural celebrations. Take your
Mm.
children to these. Talk about the clothing that
Mhm.
they wear. Talk about where they're from. Open up a map and let's point out the countries where they're from. What do they eat here? Let's go to the restaurant, go to the Mexican restaurant and have a taste of the foods. Introduce culture. It doesn't have to just be about,
Yes.
but
Yep.
the issue of being Black in Canada, um, you know, I'd say things like I know in my home when we watch things like different cartoons, we talk to the kids about what's happening in the cartoon. So unfortunately, sometimes things in my home are a teachable moment when to be a little bit frozen.
Yeah, it seems frozen, but I can still hear you. It's doing the circle thing, but I can still hear you. There we go. You're back.
Okay. Uh,
Yes, they are. Oh gosh. Okay, I can still hear. It's still doing the circle, but I can hear you.
children are being treated unfairly. I talk to the kids about that. So what would you do at school if so and so is being treated unfairly? And then you can use unfairness to talk about race and racial justice and what's unfair, what used to happen, some of that doesn't happen anymore, but some of so and still happens, right? I know that there's a lot of discomfort around talking to your children just about how to behave around police, right? I still teach, my children are small enough where I can still teach them that police officers are helpers in our community. I don't think that at their age will serve them to see police officers as the enemy, right? If one of the adults in the home collapses, they need to be able to calm down and feel confident in doing so.
Okay.
It's for them not to see our first responders as the enemy. So, those things have to be talked about. We have to talk about how they're being treated at school.
Yes, we had a question around that. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Your school, I can see you as well. Can you?
Am I frozen?
A little bit. Our internet is a little bit glitchy today.
Okay. Oh, goodness gracious, Instagram. We had a question that I wanted to actually jump on now because it ties well with what we're speaking about. So someone was asking, how are families dealing with children coming home after hearing their classmates making fun of the Black Lives Matter movement?
Right. So I would say we need to talk to our children just around what Black Lives Matter means and why it is that this movement exists. And then ask them how they felt when their classmates were making fun of them.
Right.
And give them information. So maybe in the classroom when they were being teased or making fun of, maybe they didn't know what to say. Maybe they didn't know much about not just the history of Black Lives Matter, but why are we saying Black Lives Matter? And so when they are armed with the information, they can defend themselves. Now, if it becomes more than that, then I know as a parent, I would be calling them school. I'd be like, hey, what's up? Right? Arm our children with knowledge, with age appropriate knowledge. Like, you're not gonna tell a 5-year-old about like all of the details. A 10-year-old who's asking questions, most definitely. 12, 15, they need to have the information for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, I agree there. There's another question. So someone's asking, is there an age to introduce or make children see a therapist? Kind of deviates a bit, but I mean, you work with children, so you would be a great person to answer that.
So most therapists that I am aware of don't see children under the age of 6. There's often a little bit of awareness that needs to happen developmentally for the information and to interact. Personally, I work with children as young as 3, but not on their own, because for children under 6, it's a parenting issue, right? So the child comes in. I usually meet initially with just the parent so they can tell me what's going on. And then the child comes in, the parent comes in. We do some play therapy work. We do some hand over hand parenting with the parents. But most therapists who work with children start at age 6, and it's often play-based learning, play-based therapy.
Therapy. Okay, what's hand over hand parenting?
So that's kind of like I show you what to do.
Okay.
So we would almost like a role play in the office with the child,
Mhm.
or I might do something on purpose to cause a child upset, and then the parent is now correcting the child in my office, and I'll say, don't say that, say this instead.
Okay.
Or stand up, or instead of standing up, I would say, they might stand up and say to the child, don't do that. And I would say, well, come down to their level, get on base. It's kind of like almost like a little bug in their ear, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm
Mm-hmm.
not in the home. I don't work in the home, well, anymore. I don't work in the home. So when they come in, I do some of that.
Okay. Okay, great. That's great. Um, So I'm just looking. We had a few other questions, and I know I'm very mindful of your time because Roxanne has another live that she's on at 8 o'clock. So we only have her for maybe 15 more minutes. So if you have any questions, definitely take advantage. Roxanne is a social worker, clinical social worker. She does psychotherapy. She works with families and children. So Roxanne, while we're waiting, if anyone else has any questions, I have a few other questions for you. So you mentioned about, like you were just talking about parenting style. So give us a little more information. How have you been able to structure your own style of parenting to ensure your children are properly equipped, right, when dealing with racism in school? Also, right, you spoke about the police, and we're very mindful your children are still young, so still teaching your children that
Right, right.
police are safety. But I mean, like, how are you, as a parent, and then with hand over hand parenting, how are you encouraging and encountering racism in school? Because racism it may look differently, right? It may
Mm-hmm.
not only be us speaking about like Black Lives Matter and making fun, but
Right,
it could also be directed at the
right.
child.
Yes, yes. I'm thankful I haven't had that difficulty myself, but lots of parents who come in and they'll say, my child came home and said, so I won't play with you because your skin is brown, or you look like chocolate, or
Yep.
whatever, right? What
Mm-hmm.
do you do that? So I always ask the parent to get the parent to assess, or I will try to assess how the child feels about that, because sometimes they don't necessarily internalize it, how it's presented to them at school. If it's just an observation, oh, your skin is darker than mine, then they might just, it's like the sky's blue, and then they move on. If it's a thing where I refuse to play with you, then
Mm-hmm.
we have to talk with the children about how that's making them feel. What was that like for you? What did you say? Did
Mm-hmm.
anyone else say anything? Did you tell the teacher? You don't want to pepper them with too many questions, but we have to have an understanding of how they're experiencing that. And then come in with the value. Part of it is um, telling the children how beautiful they are, letting them know on a
Mm-hmm.
daily basis how beautiful skin is. It's common in my home to say, who's my beautiful dark skinned boy? Like always.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And so they have a sense, if they begin to have a sense of who they are, then it's easier. The
Mm.
child who said that, um, having difficulty communicating. The child who said that might be angry on the inside of their area, and the only way they know how to express it to someone else, right? With older children, I encourage them to speak to come home and talk to your parents about it for sure, but encourage your older children to advocate for themselves at school. So said this and that to me. Well, who'd you to tell? And if let's go to the office. Are you comfortable if I come to school tomorrow and we go to the office together and we have a discussion with vice principal so and so about what happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have to equip our children with recognizing that their voices need to be heard, right?
Yes.
Just
Yes.
because you are from this side of the neighborhood, or just because we have a certain income, or just because of our skin color, it doesn't mean that our voices don't matter. We have voices, and we're going to use them. So encourage them to use them. Use your voice with the children who are behind them. Then they have, it's currency for them.
Yeah. I can see you.
Um,
We're
okay,
getting choppy tonight.
great, great. Always urge the children to be respectful and mindful, and as articulate as they can be, so that they can say things like, that's not respectful, and I don't appreciate that, right?
Yeah.
That wasn't,
Yeah.
that was kind, right? As little as my children are, they know how to say that wasn't kind and that hurt my feelings. My 5-year-old says, that hurt my heart. Right? We have to be able to give them the words, right? We have to be able to give, help them label their feelings. One of the things, the best ways that we can do that is model that for them. I can't find my car keys. It's making me worried. Or, that's really frustrating. Or so-and-so said something full, or I'm really angry about this thing or that thing. They have these vocabulary at their disposal.
Yeah. So one thing that you made me think of, it may also be hard for some parents to hear what their children are telling them, and then to be able to navigate going back to the teachers or the principals or so forth. Do you have a, I guess, what am I asking? Do you have, I guess, a service where you could help parents navigate that with their teaching staff, with the children's teaching staff, or with the principals or things like that? Is that something that you do?
It is something that I do. It isn't a separate service. It's just a part of the work that I do. I cut my teeth in children's mental health, and one of the things that we did in the community, one of the things that we did was we helped parents in like school meetings when they had like IEP meetings and that kind of stuff. I would go to doctors' offices with parents and stuff. So that is just a part of what I do. And if parents come in and they say, a couple years ago, I had a parent come in whose child was being bullied, and she didn't know what to say at school. And she said, "Can you come with me to the school meeting?" And I said, "You bet I can." And so I'm happy to do that. Sometimes, unfortunately, administration won't listen to you until you walk in with a third party.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's exactly why I asked, because unfortunately, as you said, sometimes the parents are feeling like they're up against a wall. That if they say something, then when they send their child to school, then their child is going to be continuously picked on. So I can imagine some parents like not say anything as a way to protect their children.
Right. Yep. I'm happy to be that person.
Okay. Oh, amazing. Does anyone have any questions? I know, Roxanne, you said you had to jump off in maybe about 3-4 minutes.
I'm good until about 7:45.
Okay, so we have a few minutes. So I know that we had some comments. Someone's CTO Educational Services is saying, my 4-year-old sees color. We have these conversations all the time about who she is and what her imagination leads to wanting to be when she watches movies. Okay, yeah. Like children, because one of the ways also we teach children about color, it's like, what color is this block? What color is this ball? So they recognize that things have a color associated to them. Right?
Oh, I missed your question.
No, I was just saying that children recognize that there's colors associated to certain things, right? Because that's how we teach. Like, what color is this ball? What color is this square? What color is this triangle? So they already recognize to identify things via color, right? So we as adults, I mean, we are really fooling ourselves if we think that children do not recognize the color of our skin and things like that. But the thing is, the difference is that just because the children might say, okay, this is a blue ball and this is a purple ball, they still see them both as balls, right? They still see as people, as their friends. So you see a lot of things where
Right.
children are like, oh, this is my friend. We're wearing the same color shirt. We're twins today. Right. So these are some of the things that we have to be mindful of when speaking with children. I mean, unfortunately, we do have to teach children about about race and racism and everything, because the reality is that they are going to experience. So it's like, how do you now go
Mm-hmm.
about to be able to teach children about race, about racism, about Black Lives Matter, about especially working with Black children and other
Yep.
children, other melanated children, other children
Yep.
of color, like recognizing your life does matter.
Yep. You know,
Right.
I think part of the work as well as it relates to school is holding the fire. Like when you
Mm,
take your child to school, are there any other teachers of color? They don't have to be Black, but is it all white teachers? Like, what does that look like? When you're
mm-hmm.
in your for parent teacher night or whatever, what does the artwork look like in the classroom? What are the books that they're reading, right? Are the
Yeah.
children the activity, is that being represented in those, or the protagonists of the books that they're reading, the movies that they're watching at school, that kind of stuff, right? Um,
Yes.
talk to the school about these things, make suggestions, right? On their own, these are our children, so and Natasha, the children, they're seeing it, right? A couple nights out of nowhere, my 8-year-old said to me, "Love different skin colors get married,"
Oh,
and just out of and
mm-hmm.
you know, and I said, "Well, your skin is dark and Daddy's skin is dark, and you got married. So do I have to get married to someone whose skin is dark?" And I said, "No, you can get married to whoever you want, right?" So, and this is they see it.
Yeah, and not only see it, but they're seeing it and they're trying to like make sense. And it's like a puzzle, right? They're trying to make things fit.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. CTO Educational Services says, yes, we need to think critically about the spaces our children are learning in. Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely, definitely, definitely. Some people say agreed. Absolutely. I'm just going through. Rashida says, hey, ladies. Hey,
Hey,
Rashida.
Rashida.
Um, yeah, so does anyone have any other questions, any comments for Roxanne? Well, we are very privileged to have her here with us on our Keep Six platforms. I know there's one more thing I wanted to ask as we're wrapping up with you. So
Yeah.
right now with schools, right? Like parents are figuring out like the different type of learning. Are we going to do online? Are we going to do in class? Are we going to do a mix of both? And you spoke a little bit
Mm.
about, what you're doing from a personal family perspective, but how are you supporting parents to make this decision? It's a hard decision to make.
It is a hard decision to make. And because it's such a hard decision, I tell every single family that I work with, you have to do what's best for your family. Don't let anyone guilt trip you or judge you into making a decision that doesn't work for you. If you
Yes.
want to keep your children at home, if you want to quit your job and homeschool, if you want to send them and let them wear masks and hand sanitizer, if you want to walk them to school, drive them to school, put them on the bus, that decision, it's personal, right? Because
Yes.
everyone
Yep.
approaches health in a different way. Everyone has different anxieties around this. You
And
have
different
to do
needs,
what
right?
works best for
And different
your needs.
needs. I mean, the reality is that being at home, some people working from home, being at home and having children, that's been very difficult,
Yes, yes.
right?
And so,
And recognizing it.
yep.
Exactly. And there's some parents may not be able to work in the house. So it's wondering like, okay, I have to send my children to school so I could maintain my food, my rent, and all of these necessities,
Yes,
right? So
exactly.
you're right. Very personal issue. It's unfortunate that some people have been, I guess, what's the word? I guess bad mouthing other people for making these
Mhm.
decisions. But again, like you said, it is a very personal issue that needs to be what works for your family at this time.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Just checking in with Rachel. I haven't seen any other questions. I'm just gonna quickly
Hmm.
scroll through, and I have Rachel on the back end helping me out. There's one question here. Got to that one. Yeah, so Roxanne, definitely tell everyone where we can find you, your Instagram, your social media handles. Let everybody know.
So you can find me here on Instagram at Francis Psychotherapy. My website is the same. I'm on Facebook. That's the same. Um, I love this work that I do. I love working in the community. My passion. I love working with women, children, families, and mental health is something that is getting more recognition. People are paying attention to it now more these days. And I guess my next foray now is to have it get the recognition that it deserves in the workplace. So my next step
Mhm.
now is to just provide some supports to management in workspaces so that they can support their staff at work, because people's mental health, you can't leave it in the car and go into the office. It comes with you.
It comes with everywhere we go. It's with us.
Yep, yep.
Yeah. That's, Roxanne, this has been a great conversation. It's been, I would love to have you on again to have another chat. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate you being here. And you know what? Yeah, if you guys, after this live, Roxanne is going to continue the conversation on her own platform, speaking more
Yes.
about the hard stuff with children, with youth, with parents, with COVID, with racism, with Black Lives Matter. So if you're interested, you can find Roxanne on her Instagram at Francis Psychotherapy at 8 o'clock. Roxanne, thank you so much. I know you have to go, so thank you, and we will touch base soon.
Thanks, Natasha. Take care. Have a good night, everyone.
Bye,
Bye.
thanks. So everyone, that was a great conversation with Roxanne Francis of Francis Psychotherapy.